Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining the FZY Israel Tour 2025 latest parent information evening. My name is Lucy. I am the current Mazkira at FZY. I've worked here for the past 2 years on Israel Tour last year and on Israel Tour this year. And I'm joined with a few people you might recognize or be sick of seeing. And with FZY's Executive Director, Joel, FZY's Rosh Israel Tour, Jake, the Director of Incoming Tourism at Tralim, Aaron, and the Head of FZY Israel Experience, Adam. And thank you so much for joining us at such short notice tonight. But we hope to be able to answer all your questions and go through everything. Just a reminder, if you do want to ask questions, I encourage you to wait till the end, just in case we cover what you're thinking. You need to be a subscriber of FZY's YouTube channel to be able to ask the question. You can put it in the chat, and we'll get to it at the end. So I'm going to pass over to Joel now. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Lucy. What we want to also be able to try to do tonight is to not go over old ground too much. There will be a little bit of just making sure that everyone is clear of like our protocols and the way that we're doing things. But we want to be able to kind of like delve into kind of like moving forward at this point. So in terms of saying that, I do want to just like clarify a slide from last time in terms of like who we are. And our core values. So the first is obviously that safety is paramount, and all of our decisions are based on that. Transparency and communication guide us, and I really hope that over the last few weeks, you have seen that. We have shared countless emails. I think this may be the third information evening we've done in just about 3 weeks. And finally, Zionism and Israel remain central to FZY's mission, which is a long way is to making the which made us help make us make the decision that we did over the last couple of days. So where we are at, it's as we shared with you this morning via email. We're really happy and delighted that we finally have clarity, not just for ourselves, but for you, and most importantly, your children. I know for the last few weeks, there's been a lot of like what ifs, and a lot of anxiety around what may be happening this summer. And I'm really happy that we're finally able to be able to share with you the final plan for this summer. And that, as we shared this morning, is Israel Tour will be going ahead as planned, leaving next week. And because of that, we will not be offering any alternative programming. And we are also very confident that we'll be taking a large cohort to Israel to have a meaningful, exciting, and safe summer experience. Since we, over the last several weeks, we've had less than 2% of people who have actually cancelled on the program. We have, well over 98% of the people still signed up, and hopefully will be joining us this summer. I know that there are several people out there who are still making decisions, and we recognise that. But we are very excited that next week we can finally move ahead with our Israel Tour program. With that said, what I want to do is now pass over to Adam, who's going to share a little bit about how we reached that decision.
Thanks a lot, Joel. So as we've said throughout the process, there are 4 key indicators as to whether Israel Tour can go ahead. On Thursday evening, 3 of those were in place. We had the security guidance on the ground from our security partners and from Cheder Matzav and Homefront Command that everything in Israel was returning to normal and it was safe to run educational programming. The flights are all back up and running, and as of today, it's a normal schedule in the airs over Israel. The vast majority of the repatriation has taken place, and the skies are open, and commercial traffic is very much restarting. And all of our insurances are in place. So the final piece of that puzzle was the Foreign Office guidance, which on Friday, just before Shabbat came in, was eased and changed from red to amber, which can allow us to go ahead. So just to clarify as well, so we ran Israel Tours last summer under the amber guidance, and it was amber when Israel Tour was launched back in December. There we go. So in terms of keeping participants safe in Israel, we're very aware that this is going to be is very important for everyone. And as we've always said throughout, this is our #1 priority. So as always, we will follow the guidelines of the Homefront Command, Picud Harif, and Cheder Matzav. So just to remind you, every single day on Israel Tour, before the group leaves their hostel in the morning, the itineraries get submitted to Cheder Matzav, which oversee all group travel in Israel, tens of thousands of participants over the course of the summer, and they can't leave their hostel until they're given the green light. and any changes to the itinerary might be made for various reasons, whether it be weather or a traffic incident or something to do with security. Every single group will have a security guard with them whilst traveling around Israel. And we've also given the Madrachim additional training on security related topics. The itineraries, as I mentioned before, are always subject to change. At very short notice, we can move people to different places around the country. In the event of an incident, it's something that we are, well, unfortunately very practiced at because of the last 2 weeks. We've moved groups from places that might have been slightly more at risk to places which have a very low level of risk, and we can do that at very short notice. In addition to that, my department, FZY Israel Experience, is a department within the Jewish Agency for Israel, and all of the tours that get run through us from the UK are under the auspices of the Jewish Agency, and they work. They essentially are the key body who deal with repatriation of our programs, and we've worked very closely with them over the last 2 weeks to get hundreds and even thousands of people back from Israel who are on programming in Israel over the last couple of weeks. And specifically for our groups for this summer, we've had written reassurance from the Jewish Agency that our groups would be a priority if an evacuation was needed and a repatriation was needed. So there is a lot of security in place that is always in place, that is part of the normal working of Israel Tour to make sure that they are run safely and securely. And on top of that, we have additional reassurances from Jaffe, we have additional trainings for the Madrachim, and we are very confident that we can run in a safe and a secure manner. So I will pass back over to Joel now.
Thank you, Adam. So I just want to, briefly touch on what is the policy for those families that don't want to move forward with Israel Tour. We ask that you cancel wherever possible by midday tomorrow. I do want to just explain why that deadline is in place, which is maybe about 24 hours or so less than what we had originally said. Now that the program is going ahead, now that FCDO guidance is, saying that we can travel to Israel safely, it means that some of the cancellation policies that we have with some of the accommodations, etc., are not as flexible as they were when we were unable to be able to bring our participants to Israel safely, or determined to be safely by the British government. So therefore, tomorrow, by the end of the day tomorrow, which is kind of like marks 1 week before our first program starts, we do need to be already in communication with different accommodations. So it's really important, wherever possible, if you're feeling this, this just isn't right for you or for your child at this point, please do share with us by midday tomorrow. If you cannot and you want to extend that, that is fine, but you need to recognize that the longer we are made aware of a cancellation, then obviously there's more money that becomes unrecoverable. We will do whatever that we can to recover money for those families, but you will need to understand that will take a few weeks for us to be able to determine that. And the cancellation policies, now that there's every indication, both from the Israeli government, from the British government, from insurance providers, from the fact that the flights are opening, providers will be less likely to be able to provide refunds. We can't share what that amount will be. As I said, there's a lot of factors which are involved in it, but we do want you to be aware, not to necessarily expect, significant sums back. We are still working and we'll do everything that we can to get as high amount back for those people who don't want to continue with this process. And if that is you, then please do make sure that you send an email to office@fzy.org.uk, ideally by midday tomorrow. I want to move on, though, to kind of what does this mean? And kind of, I know lots of questions which have been coming in over the last few hours, and we've been trying to monitor those wherever we can, and we want to try and answer those as best as we can. A lot of questions have been like, what's the situation in terms of the tour groups? Will things be changing? So our goal is absolutely to limit the number of changes that need to be made wherever possible. If we can, move ahead with no changes, that would be fantastic. We know that the participants have not in any formal way met yet, had an orientation, but we know that they have been, together on WhatsApp groups, been getting excited together in groups of friends about going together. we don't want to change that. If there's a significant number of cancellations within one or more groups, then we will make some changes at those points. Or if there's a friendship group of 3 or 4 people, of which most of those choosing this isn't the right place for them, but there's 1 or 2 that are, and they're not really with any friends anymore, then of course we will look to make changes where we can. But we want to limit the number of changes. As I mentioned before, right now, in terms of the number of cancellations that we've received into date, there would be almost none movement at all, if any. But we would obviously look at that on an individual basis, should there be a need to. But our goal here is to make limited changes. Let me pass over to Adam, who can now share with you a bit more now about people who are on flight deviations.
Thanks a lot. So just to remind everyone, you were offered a number of different options way back when you signed up. There are the group flights, which go out and come back on the dates that the FZY program starts and finishes. And then you had 3 options if you wanted to take them. You could choose to deviate your flight. So there was a small additional charge, and you could go out with the group and then pick another LL flight to come back on. You could choose to cancel that second leg, that return back to the UK, and arrange your own transport to get back to the UK. Or you could choose to cancel both your flights and arrange all of your own travel. So everyone who is with the group flight is still with the group flight. Everyone who chose that deviation option through LL, that is still in place, and everyone will have those flights available. If you've chosen to cancel one of your flights and rebook, especially if you've done it with a different carrier, you need to check to make sure that all your onward travel, your alternative arrangements are still in place. For those who don't want a deviation anymore, or if you chose to cancel and now want to come back onto the group flight, please email FZY as soon as possible. We will do our best to make sure that everyone can get on this group flight. However, it is obviously down to availability on the flight. So for quite a while now, especially with LL being one of the few carriers still flying, the flights over the summer have been absolutely jam-packed. So this will very much depend on availability. We will do our best to support you, but it's all dependent on availability. So if you do want to change your flights, if you had alternative plans that you now don't want to do, please get in touch with FZY as soon as possible. There's no guarantee we'll be able to do it, but we will be doing our best to make sure that we can accommodate everyone and accommodate all those requests. So please get in touch with FZY as soon as possible.
Thanks, Adam. So I'm Aaron from Tlalim. Just want to talk a little bit about the schedule that is planned for the group, which is very much the same schedule as we had planned for the entire time. Currently, there aren't any Cheder Matzav guidelines, the situation room or home front guidelines, which limit us visiting certain areas of the country. FZY have decided not to visit the Gaza envelope in any case this year. But all the other areas of the country that we visit usually on a regular program are all able to be visited. That is slightly different. Adam mentioned about the amber from last year, the FCDO guidelines being the same as last summer. One thing which is not quite the same as last summer is that last summer we were limited, mainly in the north of the country, to some areas which we couldn't visit. And this year we're able to go back to a completely standard program as we've had in years before. So the changes that will happen are things I think Adam and Joel both mentioned. There's the heat index is very high on one day and you can't do a certain hike, or the Ministry of Environment does regular checks on the streams when we do water hikes, and a certain water stream has been found to be polluted and we need to move to a different water hike. Those are the kind of things that we're very used to having to deal with, and we make those changes based on the Cheder Matzav guidance. Tlalim has over 1,000 participants in Israel during the month of July. So we're doing this for lots of groups in parallel. And I think Joel already mentioned this, but yeah, each day no group can leave the youth hostel or the hotel where they're staying without receiving approval from us that we've checked their schedule with the Khedem for that day, and they have told us X needs to be changed or that they're good to go ahead with their schedule as planned. So every day that happens, not just now, every group that we do all throughout the year has those has that caveat that they can't go out during the day for their day trip without having that go ahead. So that will be the same this year, and we're very excited to have to be back to routine and have an amazing 3 weeks in Israel.
Thank you, Aaron. Good evening, everyone. I'll take over from here. Just wanted to say a very quick piece on our madrachim, our leaders, who are so excited to lead Israel Tour, and are so excited with the direction that we're going back in, although it's been a turbulent few weeks. Our final prep is ready and underway and will continue into this week. So our madrachim, our leaders, are busy writing up pulot, educational and social activities, which they're going to be delivering to your kids. This week, if they haven't already, they'll be updated on care plans, allergies, dietary requirements, and other personal information that we've collated as the office. And then other things like planning the rooms for the first few nights. And we will also be delivering a final refresher this week, just to ensure that all the mads are on the same page, but they are all extremely excited and ready to meet your kids. Just some reminders for you guys. So in the next 24 hours, we know that you've received a lot of emails from us recently, so we will resend the important information booklets for you guys to have a flick through if there's any last minute bits that you need to buy. There's also still time to do the things you need to do, like buy a SIM card if you wanted to, etc. That's all visible in our important information booklet. 3 super important things to check at this point, which you can see at the bottom of the slide here. The first is to arrange the visa and send it through to us. If you haven't done that yet, it costs about £5. There's clear instructions on how to do it, but that really needs to be done, if not now, in the next couple of days. An online payment of the security deposit, which we take every year from each child. And thirdly, make sure that there are no issues with the passport and that it is valid for at least 6 months. And thank you so much. I'll pass back over to Lucy.
Okay, amazing. So we're going to, I know people have been putting questions in the chat. I know some of them we have covered as they were sent in before we got onto different slides. So we'll be covering what hasn't already been covered. So the first question is, how many kids have pulled out so far, and will parents be able to send new friend group selections if their friends are not going? So maybe Joel, this one's for you.
Yeah, sure. Like I said, there's less than 2%. There's less than 10 participants who have pulled out to date. Like we have just over 400 participants who are signed up. We've had less than 10 participants who have withdrawn. So over 390 participants are still right now in the system, ready and raring to go with us next week. So yeah, like I mentioned before, in terms of groups, like we don't want to change things if we don't need to. And also there are complications with changing things, as Adam mentioned as well. There's, in terms of flights, there's no space on flights. So if obviously your child was in with a group of like 2 or 3 friends, and now they are a couple of those few people that are no longer planning on coming with us at this point, then please do contact us and we will see what we can do. If they have friends on another tour, to see if we can move them from one group to another. We obviously don't want people to be going on their own, and if they don't need to. But we can't guarantee anything at this point. There's obviously a lot of unknown factors in terms of where there's space on flights, etc. And we don't want to make changes unless there's a necessity to do so. So yes, if your child falls into that category, who's their friends are no longer going, please do share that with us as soon as you can, and we'll see what we can do. Hopefully that's not too many people based on what we're seeing in terms of the numbers right
now. Adam, this one's for you. What are the plans for repatriation if it is needed?
So there's a number of things that we can do before we get to that point in terms of itinerary changes, moving people to safer places. So I'll give an example from the last 2 weeks. We had a group of 37 young people on a birthright program who were staying in Tel Aviv. So in the immediate aftermath of Israel's attack on Iran. They stayed in a safe location in Tel Aviv. Within 24 hours, it was apparent that obviously things were escalating. So they were all moved to Eilat, and they spent the next few days in Eilat until such time as the sky started to open and they were evacuated by plane. So in the last sort of 2 weeks, between ourselves and our partners, the Jewish Agency and Birthright and Masa, we managed to evacuate around about 5,000 people from Israel through various methods, through boats and through planes. So there are scenarios where the safest thing to do would actually be to stay put and stay in Israel, and that is always an ongoing dynamic assessment of what the specific risk would be. But in the event that we do need to do a mass evacuation, a repatriation, we're now unfortunately very experienced in arranging flights and boats to get people back to the UK.
Another one, I think, for you, Adam. What happens if the FCDO guidance changes before they fly back to red or while they're away?
So it would depend on the circumstance. So for the FCDO guidance to change back to red, something would have needed to have happened. There would have been a deterioration in the situation. And whilst we hope that isn't the case, all of the questions that we've been dealing with over the last 2 weeks would come up again. It would depend very much, as I said, on what the situation was and at what point that happened in the process. And we would take the relevant security guidance and we would discuss with our partners and decide what the best course of action would be at that point in time.
Aaron, this one's for you. Do all the hostels have safe rooms?
Yes, they all do. In order to get a business license as a youth hostel or a hotel in Israel, you have to have a safe room. They look slightly different in different places. So, for example, in a large youth hostel, which is in one building, each floor will have assigned shelters or safe rooms, which are very often the classroom that the group uses. But in any case, when each group enters a new place of accommodation, they will be the first thing that they will be shown when they get there by their staff is the where the shelter is located, and they'll know where that is at all times. In other places, for example, in the Bedouin tents, or there are shelters which are called miguniot in Hebrew, like movable ones, but they're registered by the Home Front Command as being acceptable shelters. So all the places that the groups are staying will have access to those.
Joel, this one's for you. If we wait a few more days to cancel after midday tomorrow, can you be any clearer about the financial refund policy?
So the policy itself is the same. Like the policy itself isn't changing between tomorrow and the day before tour. The difference is more about what we're able to be able to get back from the suppliers. It's actually Aaron is the person, or Aaron's team is the team in Israel who, for not all but for many of those expenses outlays in terms of for accommodation or via transport or food or whatever that is, like it's Aaron's team there, Aaron's team in Israel who need to make those cancellations. So the policy isn't changing. The policy is very clear that any money that we are able to recoup, we will pass back over to the parents. What we are saying is that, and Aaron, if you want to jump in and add anything onto this, you're probably slightly better to answer that than me, is that after tomorrow, we then start hitting a week before the program, and with, all indications, as we said, in both in Israel and the UK, that this program can go ahead and is going ahead, that some of these suppliers would be, less amenable to kind of like refunds that if it was just not physically possible to be able to run this program.
Maybe I'll just add one thing, as it's basically right now we're very much in regular times, we're very much in the full cancellation period of all the accommodations, and we've used our influence and the fact that we have thousands of participants going to these accommodations all throughout the year to try and get the places to be as flexible with us as possible. Every day that goes by, we get closer to the arrival of the group, and therefore we start being charged for more nights of accommodation. So basically, every day that goes by, more nights of accommodation will become non-refundable. So that's why Joel is and FZY have said, but we've made that deal with the accommodations by tomorrow to update them, and after that it becomes more complicated.
So there's a few questions which we can kind of speak about together about the FCDO guidance being amber. So I guess the first question to do with this is, does it being amber mean that is safe from an insurance and safety level? And also, amber means it's for essential purposes. Are we saying that this program is essential?
So I'll take that one. So in terms of all the insurances and everything that needs to go in order to make sure the tour is covered, yes, everything is in place. At amber level, everything absolutely is in place. In terms of what amber means, so there's if you read the FAQs, we go into a little bit of detail here, but essentially, this was the situation when we ran tour last year, and was the situation we launched tour. We're not saying that tour is essential. What we are saying is that the Foreign Office guidance is guidance. It is broad. It is generic guidance put out by the Foreign Office. It is saying you can travel to Israel. It's recommending only essential travel. What we are saying, and the legal advice we've taken and have taken over the last year and a half in order to make sure that our programming can go ahead, is that we take much higher and more specific security guidance on the ground. We're not just talking about sort of general tourism and general business, which is what the Foreign Office tends to guide on, and gives their broad sort of generic guidance. We're doing a specific program with specific security measures in place, with a huge infrastructure on the ground in Israel, which gives us the confidence to say that tour can go ahead safely. So the difference between amber and red is less to do with whether the British government deems it safe or not, but more to do with, at red level, they are advising not to go at all. And there are ramifications there for insurance and other aspects as well. Whereas at amber, they are essentially saying you can go to Israel, but with mitigations, and you should be careful, and it should only go if you really, really need to. So what we are arguing is that the mitigations that we have in place, the security guidance we have in place, the partnerships we have in place, make tour able to run. And we were incredibly proud to run last year with almost 500 young people safely and securely, and with a really meaningful summer, and we hope to do the same again this year.
We will be resending the kit list tomorrow. The next question, will the kids still have free time, recognizing a higher risk and likelihood of sirens?
Oh, you want me to take that? So the answer is that there is never free time, in the sense that where they're left to their own devices to do what they please. The free time is extremely structured, even on a regular year. I'm not talking about specific changes for this year. So in the same way that when they go to a new accommodation or to a certain site where they're shown the safe areas where they need to go in case of a siren, so the same goes to at the beginning of a free time, where there will be a very strict instructions at the beginning of the free time. These are the borders of where you're able to visit, which are usually quite small. Again, it depends. Sometimes when it's in a closed mall, we let them go slightly further, whereas when it's in an open area, we restrict those borders quite a lot more. And they'll know exactly where the security guard is sitting for the entire time that the group is going out. They only go out in small groups. They never go out alone. And there will always be a security guard and a madrich waiting at the point where at the meeting point, which has been laid out beforehand in the instructions. So although it might be written on the schedule as free time, it is very structured and very I forgot my English, but very they know all the time where the kids are, and the kids at the same time know where their staff are. So there's a lot of oversight. That was the word I was looking for.
Joel, this one's for you. Why did we not decide to go with alternate planning?
I think this probably goes down to kind of those core values that we mentioned at the beginning. One of those is that FZY is a Zionist youth movement. Israel is very much at the center of everything that we do and that we educate on and that we care about. And so if there was a way to run an Israel tour safely, that's very much about what we wanted to do, that we wanted to do, and we're delighted that we're able to do that. Um, and we need to at this point focus on Israel tour. Like, we don't want to spread ourselves too thin. Like, I know that there may be, some people who don't feel comfortable right now coming to Israel, and we understand that, we recognize that, and that's an okay decision to make. But we also know that there are hundreds of people that do want to go to Israel right now, and whilst we absolutely can be running Israel tour safely, our focus now needs to be on those people that want to join us on that program, and so we can focus, our attentions on them. And so that's the reason why.
This question's maybe for Aaron. Let's see. What levels of experience do the security have with each group? Are they ex-Israeli army, and to what seniority did they reach?
So they are all ex-Israeli army, as in you cannot become a security guard without that, but it's much more than that. So it's not just the security guard course that the guards do who join our groups is not the same one that you have to be a guard at the entrance to a mall or at the entrance to a bus station. It's a much longer course. It's mostly younger people who are, in the last few years out of the army, combat service in the army, and they do this very in-depth course, which also includes first aid elements, but mostly security elements. And we work with a variety of different companies who provide that service, and we have confirmations for all the different groups to have those security guards who have all gone through that course to be with the group every single day of the trip that they are out and about.
There's a few questions here about kind of shelters and sirens, so I'm going to kind of group them together. Firstly, what's a movable shelter at the Bedouin tents? Are they underground? Will the kids have drills on how to use the shelters? And are we expecting that the kids will have to go into a shelter or experience sirens? Yeah.
Yeah, I can start, and then maybe Joel can carry on. So the movable shelters are basically, because the Bedouin tents are tents, so they have what's called a migunit, which is a home front command registered shelter. It's just small and gets delivered on the back of a truck, but it's extremely heavy duty, and it is completely considered to be a safe area in the same way that you would go into the shelter in your house if you have one, or into the youth hostel or the hotel if you have where there is always one. The same would go in the case of the Bedouin tents. There hasn't been any sirens since the ceasefire. There was one, I believe, in the Gaza envelope, which ended up being a Joel is better on the statistics, but it was found to be a false alarm. So there hasn't been any since then. Will there be? We can't obviously say, but the groups will be very well instructed in advance. So that's as part of the rules that they have at the airport before they even leave the airport. That is a big part of it, going over the instructions of what to do in case of a siren, how long you have in different situations, where to go, the things that we talked about when arriving at a new accommodation, showing them where those places are. So yes, it is inbuilt into the rules and also inbuilt into the arrival at all the time at new different places. So and again, Joel will be able to say if that will be specific drills going into different places, or if it will just be showing, like, as part of the tour of the new place, you're also shown where the shelter is, because we're always trying to find a balance between not alarming anyone unnecessarily, but also making sure everyone is prepared for any eventuality.
Yeah, just to add like one or two comments on what Aaron said. Yeah, for what we're trying to do is to make sure that everyone is being safe, but like also kind of like balance between causing anxiety amongst the participants and making sure that they're safe. Obviously, the most important thing is safety, and that's why, as Aaron said, as soon as they before they even leave the airport, one of the senior staff will be sharing kind of like all the details of what to do and how to do, and that's why every time when a group will go to a new location, they'll be shown where the shelters or safe spaces are. But we don't want to kind of like every time we go, like, run a drill. We don't want to kind of like make that into some kind of like anxiety inducing kind of like process. But it's something which the Madrichim, the staff, are very, very, very well aware of what their responsibilities are to show the participants, and we will make sure that we are doing that, at every place that they go.
So the next question, maybe for Joel, just speaks a bit about what our communication is going to be like during Israel Tour itself.
Yeah, I mean, actually, like we had planned a week ago, but we had delayed that to share with you a new app that we are working with this summer. So hopefully at some point in the next couple of days, we will be sharing that with you. On that app, we'll have not just kind of like the contact information, so you know how to contact us and who's, both emergency phone numbers and our regular phone numbers and our office hours and everything like that. It will also have the itinerary of the group. There will be every day information uploaded to that app, every day apart from Shabbat. So information uploaded to that app in terms of kind of like more information about what they did, maybe some quotes from some of the participants themselves, links to photos so you can see that. So the majority of the communication this summer will be running via an app. At the same time, there'll be the emails that we have been, generally been sending you over the last couple of weeks. Like we still have obviously the ability to email, and so there may be from time to time that we will communicate via email. And in addition, there will be admin-only broadcast groups, WhatsApp groups, which will be set up according to tour groups. So if there's a need for us to also reach out for you in that way as well, that we can do that. And in terms of our communication, like there will be times when we will be calling you as well. Like should a participant not be feeling particularly well, I'm sure this won't be the case for any of your children, but if they were to behave in a way which is not according to our code of conduct and things like that, there'll be times when we'll pick up the phone and we'll make a call just to kind of update you on more specifics. So you should expect from us daily contact. Most of that will be via the app, but there will be other forms of communication.
Next question is, can the kids relax / have a good time, although there is a risk with sirens? And like, do we feel that the steps we're taking mitigates the risk of them not being able to relax?
And I can say that from like, I live in Israel. I've been living in Israel for 17 years. And I can see like the difference also, like I have kids as well, and I can see the difference between my kids a couple of weeks ago and my kids today. And like my kids today are very relaxed and are going out and are seeing their friends and having a good time. And if I look back to kind of like last summer, where the situation in terms of kind of like all of the guidance that we were given, is actually the guidance is slightly better this summer, as Aaron mentioned, in terms of like on the ground in Israel than it was last summer. And the fun that they had like was huge. They really had such an amazing experience, which is why for us it's so important that if we can go ahead with Israel Tour, which we can, that we do that. Because we want them to be able to see Israel. That Israel is not always just what you see on the news. And there's a lot more depth to Israel than that. And so like, yes, I would say absolutely participants should be able to have a fantastic time, a fun time. And if we felt that they couldn't, we wouldn't have been moving forward with this program.
Just to quickly jump back to sirens, can we clarify about if they're on a coach or if they're doing a hike? Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, we'll go into detail with all the stuff with the participants when they get here. But if those specific examples came up, happy to cover them. So on the bus, it depends. So there have been situations with sirens recently where you have a 10-minute warning beforehand from the home front command via the app, which all the staff will have. And usually 10 minutes is enough time to be able to get off the bus safely on the side of not on the side of the road, and be able to move away from the bus and be safe in an open area, which is the guidelines when you're in an open area are to lie on the floor with your hands on your head. Most of the time we won't get to that. Most of the time we'll be able to be in a built-up area where there are shelters available. Going into underground car parks sometimes is the case. Again, each place will have its own merits. So every time, as I said earlier, every time they go to a new place, whether that's free time in the shuk and they're told that this is the nearest shelter, or this underground car park -2 or -1 is where you go to. In the case of a siren, we'll meet together at point X and go together to the shelter. So that's in case of when you have plenty of time, which is what we have had since the ceasefire with Lebanon. Was it almost a year ago now? It's always been these long warning times, and we're not going to anywhere. For example, we're not going to the Gaza envelope where there are occasionally sirens with a short window of time to get to a shelter, and we're not going there. Not only because of that, also for educational reasons, but that's generally how it works. But each place with its own scenario, with its own characteristics, each time will be explained clearly at arrival at that place.
How will you protect a child whose parent is supposed to meet them at the end, but if the guidance changes, they will not be able to meet them? It's a question for Adam or...
Just to clarify, do you mean in terms of if a parent has gone off on a holiday somewhere else and we need to do an evacuation? Is that the question?
Assume it's about deviated flights if the parents can't get flights to meet their child at the end.
Okay, so I guess there's a few different answers here. It would depend on the specific situation. If that is a situation you think you might find yourself in, please reach out to FZY so that we can plan ahead and be aware of what the specific variables are. There are ways that we can obviously get individual children back on group flights, and as I said, those who have deviations, we're going to do our best over the coming few days to try and get you back onto those group flights. So in an emergency situation, the first port of call will be to try and find a flight back to the UK. We obviously would try and do that with the group so that they are cared for. There is also a lot of people will have put an additional emergency contact on their form. So there are additional emergency contacts. A lot of people have family or friends in Israel that we could take them to instead. But it's a tricky one to answer without the specific situation and the specific family in mind. But we're obviously not going to abandon children at the end of the program. They are under our duty of care, and they will stay with the group until such time as they can be released to a responsible adult to look after them.
Yeah, I guess there's just specific situations to get in touch with the FZY office, and we can help deal with that. Moving on to sort of SIM cards, will the children be escorted to pick up their SIM cards? Is it better to order an eSIM directly to their phones?
So within the information booklet, which we're going to resend out tomorrow, you're welcome to kind of like go via any provider you choose. There's no one who we take any commission off or anything like that at all. But there is only one company that is actually based in Ben Gurion Airport called 019, who work a lot with incoming groups. They provide both physical SIM cards and eSIM SIM cards. There's already a landing page set up on their website for us, which when we resend the information booklet out, you will be able to access that easily. And what will happen if you go through that? If it's an eSIM anyway, it's there, it's with you. If it's a physical SIM that you order, our staff, before the participants even come through into the arrivals hall, will already have collected all of those SIM cards. They'll be waiting for us in a package. And when we will distribute those to the participants at the airport, and before they leave the airport, we would ask and help the participants to check that all of their phones are working and running. And if not, then our staff will go with them to the 019 shop, the desk there, and to kind of like sort that. Obviously, if you choose to go through another provider, we will try and support where we can, but it's they're obviously not based in Ben Gurion Airport, and it will be slightly more limited of how we can help and support. But that's why we recommend to go with 019. As I said, not for any financial gains or anything like that. It's just in terms of matter of ease. So that's what we recommend. But we will support your kids with any of those any suppliers they choose to go with.
If there are group changes based on dropouts, is it our intention for the groups to fly out and return on the same dates?
Yes, I mean, like we're not expecting mass changes if there are changes at all. Like the flights that we have 10 flights booked. I think over around 4 or 5 different flights. There's normally on each flight there's normally 2 groups and sometimes maybe 3 groups going on. So I think where all the 10 groups are going out over 4 or 5 different flights. That shouldn't change. Now, obviously, if there is a participant if there's a need for certain groups to change slightly or certain participants to move from one group to another, there is a possibility there could be a date change because the groups all leave England on the 7th, the 8th, or the 9th of July on the night flight and all return back on the 29th, the 30th, or the 31st. So if a participant is being moved from, let's say, tour 1 to tour 6, there could be, a date change, but in terms of generally, no, like that's not perceived.
If there is unrest in Israel over Shabbat, will we be able to be in contact with families to let them know all is well and safe?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, like we say that our office is shut over Shabbat in terms of like that's not we don't communicate as a regular daily update. Our staff, all of our partners are working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for the entirety of the time that participants are in Israel. Even those which keep Shabbat, their phones are on at all time, and if there's ever an emergency, they are always available, and we will absolutely contact parents in those kind of circumstances, whether it's Shabbat or any day of the week. That doesn't.
Will the safety precautions and the current emotional climate in Israel detract from the tour experience?
So, I mean, I kind of mentioned that. I'm going to add one more thing, and I just saw you came off of mute, and maybe you want to add to it as well. If anything, I actually think it adds. Last year, I can tell you that like one of the highlights of our Israel Tour program is this Maccabea, where we bring all of the groups together for a day of competition, where the different groups compete against each other in sports and in education and in talent and many different other areas. And at the end of that day, there's a tekes, there's a ceremony, which is actually run by the participants themselves. And I have to say, in the couple of decades of these kind of ceremonies that I've been to, that was by far the most emotional and powerful one I have been to. And I've never been to one of these ceremonies where the participants are just so engaged in that and were kind of like lapping it all up and were wanting to kind of like hear what each other was saying. I know that as the groups were going around last year, visiting places like Hostel Square or Har Herzl, like the military cemetery in Jerusalem, like they were so much in tune and so much more wanted to understand and delve and like learn the information rather than sometimes they kind of like, were more, well, I'm not saying they weren't interested in like the snorkeling and the aquacaf and the sand surfing, all of those things, but like they were more ready and willing and wanting to kind of like engage because these are topics and things that they've been hearing about for the last year or so. So I actually, if anything, I think that coming to Israel, during this time will be a more powerful, more meaningful experience for your children, and I think they will really gain a lot from
that. Is there Wi-Fi / good phone reception at all of the overnight locations?
Phone reception, not necessarily, but in almost all the places, in all the youth hostels, yes. Wi-Fi there is in all the places. There are a couple of places where the phone signal is a bit more iffy, but there's always a backup. So the madrachim will always have access to communication. So always, if the chanachim don't have, the madrachim will always have. For example, there's certain places like the Bedouin tents where there's a certain atmosphere which we're trying to build there. So it could be that the phone signal there is not so great, and there is Wi-Fi there in the whole place, but we don't necessarily give it out freely to all the participants because we want them to be there in the moment and not just on their phones the whole time. But again, that's more of an FZY decision. If they decided that they did want everyone to have it, we would be happy to facilitate that as well.
Are the security guards armed?
Yes.
I think that might be the last question that we haven't already covered. Joe, I don't know if you just want to reiterate about if people aren't feeling comfortable and they're feeling that they don't want to send their child, what the situation is. I think that's coming up a little bit now towards the end. I think it'd be good just to go over our position and yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So look, but before I do that, first I just want to like, as we're now wrapping up here, I just want to thank everyone again. Like I really do. Like we appreciate that the last few weeks have been difficult and challenging for everyone, and for you to kind of like remain in this process with us and to be here to ask like really good questions. Like we really appreciate that. And I, I really hope that we will see like the vast majority, if not all of your children, in a week or so from now in Israel, having what I have no doubt will be an incredible, meaningful, fun, exciting summer. Like if there are people here who feel like this just isn't the right time for this to happen for their child, then there is no pressure. Like we're not forcing anyone to do anything. The process will be to please just email us to office@fzy.org.uk, ideally by midday tomorrow, to share that. If there are any of you who want to have a conversation with any of with an FZY staff tomorrow that we haven't covered anything, or that you have a specific personalized question that's not really relevant to everyone who's here, then again, please do call the FZY office tomorrow or send an email. We'll be more than happy to reach out to try and find the answers for you, to try and find solutions for you. We are, as we said, we're really excited now for this summer. We're really happy that we're now in a place that we're running this. We're really excited, like having seen the program over many years and seeing the impact that Israel Tour has on hundreds of like Jewish youth across Britain. We're so excited that we're able to kind of be able to continue that again this year. And I hope with your children, and I hope that over the next few weeks we'll be speaking a lot more. But this time, in positive things, sharing with you like the fun experiences and the educational experiences that your children will be having. So I guess, Lucy, we're closing up now, or is there?
Yes, no, we're closing on that. Well, thank everyone so much for joining us tonight. And also, I know me and Jake are in the ground in the office, and to all of you who we've spoken to who have been so supportive during this time, it makes our job so much nicer. We've really enjoyed those conversations and having that support from all of you. So thank you so much. And we look forward to being in contact this week and for an amazing summer 2025 in Israel. Thank you so much.